Thank you so much. Yeah, so just continuing with this. For those who may not be familiar, COFEM, the Coalition of Feminists for Social Change, it's a global collective of feminist activists, researchers, and practitioners committed to ending violence against women and girls. COFEM's key strength lies in the collective expertise and experience of our members who have made significant contributions to advancing women's rights and ending violence against women and girls in humanitarian and development settings across the world. So before we dive into today's agenda, let's take a moment to introduce ourselves. Please share your name, location, and what motivated you to join today's session. I'll also put this in the chat, so uh, you can also refer to that. And I believe that this will also help us in building connections and to foster a supportive and collaborative space for today's discussion. Jenny, can we go to the third slide on the session's objectives? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So, in terms of today's session, it's an important opportunity for all of us to come together as a community of feminist thinkers and practitioners to reflect on the three objectives that we have. One is on how colonial legacies persist in violence against women research. In terms of how we'll be unpacking how historical power imbalances and systemic inequities continue to shape the research landscape. Second would be to identify decolonial strategies that center local knowledge, and together we'll be exploring some practical approaches to amplify the voices and lived experiences of communities most affected by violence. And the third is to co create a space for collaboration and reflection that will guide the development of a knowledge product that Jenny and I will be working on after this session. And this knowledge product will reflect the collective expertise and perspectives of today's participants and also aim to transform how violence against women research is conceptualized and conducted from a decolonial lens. And I just want to emphasize that co creation is not just a method, it's also a feminist principle that ensures inclusivity and shared ownership. So, by engaging in meaningful collaboration, we aim to dismantle hierarchies and uplift diverse perspectives. As you can see, there are a lot of us joining over here for today's session, and today your insights will directly contribute to shaping a decolonial approach to feminist research, ensuring it remains grounded in justice, participation, and equity. Um, as we move forward, I'll provide a brief overview of some of the dilemmas that we face when attempting to decolonize violence against women research. And following that, Jenny will outline the key principles of feminist research on gender based violence. So, before we begin, I'd like to leave you with a question to reflect on, which is what does a decolonial lens mean to you in the context of violence against women research? So please feel free to share your thoughts throughout the session as they'll be very important for us today during the discussion. So let's dive in. As you can see on the dilemmas in decolonizing research, particularly in violence against women context, there are some of the strategies which are very crucial and we must remain mindful of it throughout the research process. And the first one is this insider outsider tension, which is a recurring challenge in feminist research, where there is a tension between being an insider or outsider, or sometimes both or neither. As researchers, we must reflect on our positionality. Are we genuinely amplifying local voices, or are we unintentionally speaking for others? And that's where a decolonial lens reminds us to co create knowledge by involving local communities as equal partners rather than passive participants. Second is involving researchers, local researchers. As they bring invaluable expertise, they speak the language, understand the cultural nuances, and navigate community dynamics. Yet they're often excluded from leadership roles in research projects. So, decolonizing research also means not only including local researchers, but also acknowledging their contributions as essential drivers of knowledge production. Third is unequal power dynamics in research partnerships, where power imbalances are deeply entrenched in research partnerships, especially between global North and South institutions. This disparity is often manifest in how funding is distributed, who controls the agenda, and whose knowledge is validated. So, a feminist decolonial approach calls for shared decision making at every stage from research design to dissemination. Fourth is research design and ethics. That's where ethics must be central to our research, and this includes managing security risks for both participants and researchers, especially in sensitive settings. And also, ethical research isn't just about safety protocols, it's about ensuring our methodologies respect participants' dignity and aim to influence meaningful policy and practice. And the fifth one is vicarious trauma. Finally, we must address the emotional toll of research. Repeated exposure to stories of violence can lead to vicarious trauma for both researchers and participants. Feminist research prioritizes care for researchers, informants, and communities, where we must build systems of psychosocial support into our research processes. And now, as we move on to the key feminist principles, I would like to hand over to Jenny to take it forward from there.
Thank you so much, Pupu.
Sorry, Jenny, give me a
Oh,
second. I'll just share the screen.
no problem. Thank you.
Yes, I think my screen is visible.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, Taking it off from where Popo stopped, I'll be giving an overview of feminist research on GBV. So I'll be looking at key principles. And of course, there are many principles there, but we'll just be looking at principles that we have highlighted. So some of the principles we are looking at or will be highlighting and we really want to pay particular attention to includes feminist research on GBV that focused on the ways in which power, status, and resources are distributed unequally between women and men, and of course, the way it imparts on inequality, and of course, on GBV. While we highlight these principles, there are also other principles I'll be sharing alongside with these. So, secondly, and of course, the principle that I'm highlighting, you could find them on COFEM tip sheet 5 on feminist approaches to knowledge building and evidence. We'll share that resources with you as well. Then also on our tip sheet, we also brought to the light feminist research that builds on evidence with women and girls at the center. So by this, we are looking at research that challenges and transforms systemic and patriarchal systems using research as a tool to end GBV and, of course, other forms of oppression. And here we'll also be looking at feminist research that recognizes the way in which the dynamics of gender inequality intersect with other social inequalities. And of course, we all know this to be intersectionality. Then feminist research that acknowledges that power dynamics in every research process. Then speaking of intersectionality, power, yes, we are grateful to Kimberly Crenshaw in her work in 1987 that explores how social identities, shape the experience of women's oppression in the area of gender-based violence. Beside this, I will be adding other principles too, which we did not reflect here because we wanted us to pay particular attention to the COFEM tip sheet 5. There is also the survival center approach that we want to visibilize and prioritize the voices and experience, of course, agency and needs of survival, in a way ensuring that their perspectives are at the center of the research process. And of course, yeah, on the COFEM tip sheet 5 is also acknowledging the power dynamics in every research process. Then, of course, there is ethical consideration and safety. And I'll be looking at this on the basis of do no harm, more like adhering to stringent ethical guidelines, prioritizing the safety and well-being of research participants who are basically women and girls, survivors of GBV. Then also there is this aspect of critical reflection of researchers themselves, more like applying reflexivity and positionality. And speaking on this, we would like to refer to J. Rutzman's view on one's own values. Like J. Rutzman, in his publication in 2014, he privileged, you know, how researchers could value their own, could more like, reflect on their own values, agency, and bias as part of, not separate from the intentions one makes and, of course, studies. J. Rudman, in the way highlighted having the analytical detachment to scrutinize one's own involvement as both subjects doing something and observing as an observer, of course, watching something. So that way it helps us to make choices about what is useful or what is harmful in assisting others to do their own work. Then I will also want to reflect on challenging traditional power structure, looking at feminist research should be able to, challenge and deconstruct traditional hierarchical structures within academic research. And of course, not just academic research, and also, outside the academic community. And this includes recognizing that knowledge production is not neutral in itself, but often reflects power dynamics. Then we also want to highlight the influence of action, more like the place of action oriented and advocacy focused research. GBV research should be able to, surface social change and justice. That should be some key, outcome expected from GBV research. Then, of course, I also want to share about holistic and contextual analysis. And here I want to, bring to light Abolish and Godesru's 2016 work on interdisciplinary study that explores the social and cultural construction of gender ideologies that promote GBV. In this study, they emphasize the importance of understanding context, the social context, the cultural context, historical and political factors that influences both the prevalence of GBV and the way it's being responded to. Then I will also include collaboration and community engagement. This is really key. Jessica Sand here in her 2016 publication also make reference to the value of praxis, decentering knowledge making that has been mainly driven by socially advantaged groups who have more access, to academia. So feminist researchers we should often work in collaboration with community organizations, activists, and survivors. So our research it would be better it goes in that way, so that way we acknowledge all the stakeholders and the process of knowledge production. Then, of course, accountability to communities and participants. We owe this to them. And I remember something that a supervisor of mine, when I was participating in the feminist age training for gender professionals, he said something, the external review of my project, more like that this is one thing that we often missed, and that is when we carry out a study, we owe it to other stakeholders of that particular study to bring to light the impact of the study. Like it should mean something, it shouldn't be a study that is conducted and just put under the shelf. And of course, we need to also pay attention to sex and gender-based analysis. More like feminist research should focus on understanding gendered violence, violence that is based on gender norms, rules, and expectations. And this includes recognizing ways in which violence is not just an individual act, but a societal issue that is rooted in gender inequality and patriarchal structure. So this it's just a highlight we want to like bring to your understanding. And as we continue, we would like to hear more from you because you all are all the expert. So Popu, I will push the mic back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Um, so now we're moving to the group discussion part, and we have two parts for 20 minutes each. So it's going to be a 40 minutes discussion. And the first part is about overcoming power dynamics. I'm just going to stop sharing the screen so we can share the Word document link with you. We are not super technologically inclined, so we were struggling a bit with how we can create a co-creation space where we can get everyone's inputs and thoughts. And we were struggling a bit with different platforms, so we ended up um, using a Google document that I'll just be sharing the link in the chat, which you can access. And we'll be using 15 minutes at the start for the discussion for part one, which is about overcoming power dynamics. And then 5 minutes of reflection space where we can discuss the key insights that were coming up. And for keeping it convenient between the two facilitators, me and Jenny, we will be creating two breakout rooms, and it will be a parallel discussion happening. So you feel free to choose any breakout room for that, and we'll be working on the same document. Just let me check if I see all of you over there. I'll also put it up on my screen, and in the meantime, also create a breakout room. Just give me a moment.
Oh,
Hello. Hi.
Hello, hi everyone.
Hello.
Super. I hope you were able to access the document.
Yep.
Perfect. So, for the next 15 minutes, we'll be spending time to answer three questions. And this is where we look forward to hearing more from your experiences and expertise on how do you overcome power dynamics when it comes to research on violence against women. And the first question is around how do colonial power hierarchies show up during data collection, analysis, or dissemination in your research? So feel free to write your thoughts over there, or you can also unmute yourself and share your thoughts on that while we also take some notes. So, yeah. And maybe one by one we can go through the questions, or you can take 2 minutes to also go through all the three questions and then we can start with the discussion.
Okay. Could you please put the question again?
Yeah, I'll just also put it in the chat. So,
Thank you.
So it is, how do colonial power hierarchies show up during data collection, analysis, and or dissemination in your research? Would you prefer if I just share my screen so it's easier to? Yes, Francesca.
Hi, everyone. I think like in my experience, I have worked with women victims of human rights violations, and women human rights and environmental defenders. So this is where most of my experience comes from. So my last research project, I was kind of like reflecting on this, and actually that was a big chunk of the discussion was it reflects on funding. So how do you put your money where your mouth is? Like I recently worked on a report that wanted to uncover online gender-based violence against women environmental defenders, and those that were most at risk were often not really into the online platforms, or somehow they didn't have the skills to manage them, so they were more vulnerable to that. There was also a thing with language and funding to go to the areas where these people were, and ultimately it was on language, because the experience came from Latin America, but we had to produce the report in English so the donor could read it. So, and then we didn't have funding to translate it into Spanish so people could use it for the advocacy purposes. They had funding afterwards to translate it themselves, but it would have been easier for everyone if we could have just write it in Spanish. So that was one of the main challenges I found. But I would highlight the difficulties to find those testimonies of intersectional experiences, because the lack of trust from people, but also how hard it is to even reach out to them sometimes.
Thank you, thank you so much, Francesca, for sharing. Cynthia, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. In line to what Francisco was saying, I thought about how research has this tendency to extract knowledge and people's experiences, to use it for the research sake or the researcher needs, right? Because let's think about how every research topic has an agenda, right? And every profession follows to certain interests, right? So I think it's important to look at how actually this extraction of evidence, people's experiences, can be another way, um, to put into practice colonial practices as it is, and how research is still a way of persuading this kind of violence, because it is a kind of violence. And I think it will be like the alternative will be to include those who are part of the research and make that their participation in the research, or the knowledge they give for the researcher and the research purposes, will actually go back to them in another way that they could benefit. So it's not only a way of taking something out from them so they can be part of the process, they can work like in collaboration instead of just giving and giving. So it can be bilateral. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Cynthia. Would anybody else like to share their thoughts or use the document to write what they would like to share? The other question is also about what are some practical strategies for ensuring that research goals are defined collaboratively with communities? And the third question is around how can we better ground community perspectives and lived experiences of violence in feminist research? So I'll just give it 5 minutes for all of you to just go through the questions, reflect a bit, and share your thoughts.
Hi, can I come in here?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Maria here, or you can just call me Tess. I think a few things that I would like to share is I know we are on this third question, but what I would like also to add on the first one is something to do with whose agenda is dictating the research. Because I think that is really crucial. This is part of number one, because the the agenda are usually dictated by the big agencies, which is linked to funding. And also, it's also to do with the big powers I used to work in the UN coordination in the Rohingya response. And it is like, we need to do this multi-sectoral assessment. It's because that is needed. And it becomes like a lip service. And so in terms of the definition of research, what is it like? What is it exactly um, that we need to do? And then also, for example, not only the funders, but the big agencies within the UN agencies, we need to do this, we need to do that. And so moving back to this collaboratively with the communities, and also number three, it's not only, I think we need to, in as much as we need to liaise with local organizations, we talk a lot about women-led organizations. I think we need the partnership. Liaising is not enough. The partnership with women-led organization, not only in program, research should be part of that, because a lot of research or like an assessment, you cannot do programming if it is just, you have already a pre-program in your head. It needs to be evidence-based, and research is a living thing that we need to provide those current data.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts, Maria. I really resonate on the link to the funding and how it's dictated by funding agencies, and they're the ones who decide the agenda and the research question and everything, where the voice goes away from the local communities and, in a way, creates the power hierarchies or the dynamics in which they are not at the center of the research or the participation. Would anybody else be interested in sharing their thoughts?
Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, you are, Aisha. In
Can you
case
hear
you're
me?
saying something, I can't hear you right now.
But third question I'm answering is how we can like make it brown better and on a ground. I feel like in terms because I'm from India and we have this diverse representation of domestic violence, including women of various castes such as Dalit and OBC, and we have significantly classes and religion, a lot of things happening around. So we should need to have those voices utter because if we, as we recently had one incident where one of our finance ministers said that she feel that patriarchy doesn't exist in our society according to her, but it's not the reality. So I feel like at certain age when the people are with privilege, they had this mindset that other people are on the same level, but it's not true in reality. So I guess giving them the option to understand how things work is something we need to work on. And secondly, these kind of centering like giving the survivors the opportunity to involve in those kind of organizing lead in community, because I guess we do a lot of time talk about gender based violence, but I guess there is like a high time because we are talking about a lot of issues such as mental health and going through a lot of things. I guess while the survivor who got survived from those violence which is happening around, so if we also create a community for them, firstly giving them the first experience that how they overcome it and help other survivor to get in and help us in designing the research, getting to know how it is rather than just interviewing them, making them a part, but giving them the opportunity to lead it properly.
Thanks a lot, Aisha, for sharing your thoughts. Um, since we have 5 more minutes for the discussion, followed by 5 more minutes of summarizing all the points. I heard someone else unmute.
Oh, yes, MG. I'm sorry that I
Yeah,
couldn't put
yeah.
my camera. So I'm a lawyer in Colombia, and I have been working with lesbian, bisexual, trans women, and non-minority people who have been suffered gender-based violence during the armed conflict and persecution due to the sexual orientation and and gender. And my work is focusing in communities. So I'm going to give for me like some elements for the second question. I work in local communities specifically, and my projects are based in international cooperation. So of course, it would be ideal that from the beginning of the design of the project, we can have the consultation from these local communities, which mean to have a strong communication with leadership, with local leaderships, to know their necessities, and also in this case to not re-victimize when we're talking about this kind of violence. I know this could be a bit difficult from the beginning because of the design. Not always you have the possibilities, but I think we have not take anything for granted, which means like we know everything because from maybe I'm from the same country, from the same community, from the same city. I have been reading. I have been doing my research. I think we have to be very careful that to have like a territorial approach, not only of course the gender approach, but every communities and every territory has a different point of view, how they manage themselves. So I think one element is not thinking that we know everything, and have this pre-consultation. It would be ideal to start the project.
Thanks a lot for sharing. I see another hand raised from this part. Fatima, would you like to go?
Do you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Sorry, my internet is a bit bad. I was thinking about 2 points because I studied like decolonization during my master's, and then one of the things that was coming up even during the research was we tend to study a group which we consider like studying down and the studying up approach. Like when Aisha was talking about how especially in India, when someone is like privileged, they do not understand. It happens even in my friend circle where they believe that gender violence doesn't exist because it doesn't happen personally to them. I feel like there is a need to understand the society as a whole because there are things happening and how you're not seeing. I feel like even those things are not researched at all because what happens here is I feel there is an othering. It's like, oh, this happens in like uneducated classes or things like that. So this kind of a mindset is also very colonized, according to me. Um, yeah, I think majorly I was thinking about this. Yeah, thank you. I forgot the other point. I'll just.
Thanks for sharing, Fatima. We just have a minute left. Anybody else wants to go next? I saw someone unmute. Hmm. Okay, I think we can leave the room while we join the rest of the group just to summarize some points before we move to the next round of discussion. In case you still have some points you want to share, maybe you can use the Word document to just write down some of your thoughts. And yeah, I will leave the room, and I think you all can as well. Hi, we're just taking 2 minutes before the rest of the members are back from the other breakout room. So please take 2 minutes to drink some water. Um, yeah, just to rest for a bit before we get to the next discussion. Hi, Jenny. Is everyone back from the other room?
Yeah, I think is it possible for you to get everyone out without them necessarily
Yeah,
like
I,
joining
I
back?
just
Yeah,
closed the breakout room. It's so funny because I always join webinars and I could see the 60
awesome.
seconds time. And now when I'm
Thank you.
actually making the breakout rooms, I was looking for it. So I just figured out.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think maybe in another 30 seconds, everyone should be back and then we can move to the second round of discussion. Jenny, shall we also take 5 minutes to just quickly summarize some of the discussions from both the rooms? Yes, Preeti.
Hi, Popul. Just a quick question. If like a thought comes, can I type on that document or like
Yes,
can we only do that as I can? Oh, awesome. Thank
yeah.
you.
Just feel free to use the document whenever you have any thoughts or any examples or insights that you want to share. Just write it down over there. We're very sorry
Awesome.
that it looks so plain with the Word document, but we were
No, it's
informing
very
with this.
insightful. I think a few of us took some time to open up because these are
Mhm.
some heavy questions. I know it's early morning for me, but really appreciate the space. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so Popo, we are responding to the second part. Very
Oh, perfect. So
interesting.
you already had the discussion on that.
Yeah, but we did not respond to the first. I guess when you divide again, I don't know. But just to let you know though.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So maybe when we do the second round of discussion, we also summarize in our own group.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just share my screen to orient everyone on the second round of discussion that we're going to have, and then I'll just create the breakout rooms for us. So the second round of discussion, sorry, I see Preeti, is your hand still raised? Or, oh, perfect. Okay, so with the second round of discussion, we want to move beyond methodologies and concretely look at some practical steps of decolonizing research and sorry. Yeah. So, in terms of sharing practical insights, one on practical steps for embedding decolonial perspectives at all research stages. For example, the research design, the funding, partnerships, and dissemination. And the second question that we want to delve deeper into is on how we can address challenges in applying decolonial perspectives throughout the research process. So, in terms of thinking of how to overcome these challenges that we have throughout the process. And the third one is on how can we ensure that feminist research outcomes remain accessible and meaningful to the communities that we work with. So we'll be taking 15 minutes for covering these three questions, followed by 5 minutes of discussion within our own breakout room groups to just summarize on the points that we discussed. So if anybody has a question, please feel free to raise your hand. And in the meantime, you can also refer back to the document, the Word document that we shared, and I'll just create the breakout rooms and then we can continue with that. Jenny, is there anything I'm missing, or do you want to say anything?
Not at all. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hi everyone. I think it's a relatively fresh group again. I'll just share my screen. So it's basically I'll also increase the font of this. Yeah. So in terms of the second round of discussion, I can repeat the first question, which is on practical steps for embedding decolonial perspectives at all research stages. So, if anybody wants to share their thoughts and experience, please feel free to raise your hand or share your thoughts in the chat. Or best would be if you could also share it in the Word document. And you can also see all the other thoughts and insights that are there from the other groups since they've already covered this section. Yes, Preeti.
Thanks for me again. I think it's interesting to explore when we're talking about working with communities that very often an overlooked part of the process is actively continuing to build trust and transparency with the community. You know, we go in there, we conduct research, and then we have our findings, and we go about whatever the next steps are. But when we foster long-term relationships, creating mutual respect, very clear communication with these stakeholders about what is the intention, for example, for this research, what is the outcome, what processes are we using. When we're very clear and intentional in that communication, it creates a space for even future researchers in the space to come in and work with communities, instead of them just seeing someone coming with their own agenda into the community and then disappearing after they get that research. So yeah, I think I should I write that? Oh, great, someone's writing it. Awesome, thank you.
Oh, that's me. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Preeti. I've written a sentence, but if you want to complete it, you can also add more on that. The second question that we have is how can we address challenges in applying decolonial perspectives throughout the research process? Now, over here, I can go first on this because I also have some experience of. Um, so I'm from India, but I work in the Netherlands, and it's quite a struggle when I come from the global south, but I work in the global north for the global south people. And a lot of times with communities, one of the best practices that we always try to follow is to always validate the research findings or the questions and everything with the participants. And it's a very intentional process from our end. And it requires a lot of thinking to be very intentional with the design or the methods that we are using, the kind of questions we ask, and in that whole research process of involving communities, it of course might take a little bit longer to have some drafts ready, but I also see that as a best practice of, or a good practice of always making sure that we have their validation and their inputs or feedback on the language that we're using, what findings are we disseminating, and in which languages or how can we make our study or our research more accessible for the communities. So that's one thing. And if somebody else has any other thoughts, please, you may have the floor.
Can I share my experience here, number 3, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Going back to the Rohingya response, it is led by the UN, the IECG, and we I ensured that we have the gender analysis is it's compulsory. We institutionalize that. And so, for example, during the COVID response, and then we had also the comprehensive gender analysis for the longer term. Now, one of the ways it that it can be accessible and also meaningful is that in the UN we have a, how do you call that, like a town hall meeting. A town hall meeting, it's like for everyone, for all the actors, all the partners, including the government. And for example, that is one of our avenues that we can share all the research, other research, and especially with this gender analysis, because it needs to be used in the joint response planning every year. And so we need to ensure that the gender assessment are in time or on time for the planning. And then we also share that like at the very beginning, in terms of these are, the multi-sectoral, these are the recommendations of its sector that includes GVV and beyond the GVV. And also if there are partners there, we are also giving them the space if they disagree with that. And also, because I used to lead the Gender Hub and the GIHA, the Gender in Humanitarian Action group, they're co-coordinating. We also give the space to every sector and their partners to provide them again, socializing those reports and even helping them in terms of developing their project proposal based on that research. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Maria. Do you also mind just putting this down, as I wasn't able to take down notes for this? We have another 9 minutes for discussion on these three questions, so I'll just give you all some time and space to just go through other people's comments and insights and also add your own. I really like this point on prioritizing time and making good use of time and being patient, um, and not rushing to get the data. We have another 4 minutes for inputting your thoughts, and then in 4 minutes, we summarize some of the key points from our discussion. And if you want to share anything else. Yes. I hope you all had the time to mm, write your thoughts and experiences over here. So just quickly wrapping up some of our discussion points and also going through the points I'm reading. It sounds very insightful and also some very simple things that we can do to practically decolonize research on violence against women at all throughout the research process. And I see how there's mention of colonial power often being undervalued or ignored as compared to indigenous methods and knowledge systems. Also, in terms of inclusive methods and designs, prioritizing how to work the research subjects. Oh my God, I see that the breakout room is closing in less than a minute. So Um, maybe we can just join the bigger discussion then, because I don't think we have enough time to summarize everything and have a discussion. So please feel free to join the main session. Hi everyone. Um, Jenny, is everyone back from your breakout room? I think everyone's back, right?
Yes, everyone is back, although some persons have left for other
Mm-hmm.
meetings. Yeah, so
Okay, no problem. Would you like to take over the collective reflection part as we move forward?
okay, thank you so much. So thank you so much, everyone, and welcome back. Thank you so much for your participation. So here, we'll be looking at, yeah, sharing practical insight. Wait, is it? No, sorry. Yeah, so here we are on collective reflection and recommendation based on the activities we just participated in the two different breakout sections. So here we welcome your comments, your reflections, and of course contributions to you can decide to go back and forth of the questions. We tried to um respond to. So I think here it's more like the mic is up for everyone, and we really want to hear your voice and hear what you think. Perhaps something came to your mind while you were responding to those questions and you would like to share. Thank you so much. Oh, Pupu, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, sure. I was also going to say if someone wants to share in the chat, they can also do that. Um, Overall, it was a very interesting discussion in our breakout room, and I also saw a lot of participants sharing their thoughts on the Word document directly, and there were a lot of emerging themes that I could see in both the discussions in terms of, um, like, for example, making the language more simple when it comes to dissemination or with the research methodologies, and when you're connecting with communities to have that simplified language. And one point that I really liked in the second round of discussion was not to rush through the whole data to get it fast and to um, practice being more patient in getting your research validated or to ensure that everyone's views and opinions are taken into consideration in the research process. And also, there was a discussion around understanding privilege, especially in the context of gender-based violence and violence against women and girls, and to also have that reflexivity and positionality while conducting research, and to understand our own um, biases or conceptions and other things. So that was also a very interesting reflection that came from a participant. Also, in terms of incorporating community perspectives and lived experiences on how there's a need to liaise with local organizations that are already working on the issue so they can provide more contextual knowledge, and to also leverage the local knowledge systems that are there, and to strengthen ownership, um, and to magnify the voices of the local communities and the participants that are there. And there was also another point that I remember, which was on co-designing the research process with the participants so that they inform us on how to sensitively conduct research where we overcome these power dynamics and hierarchies that are there, and also be reflective of our own position in the research. So these were some of the discussion points that came up during our breakout session. And Jenny, is there something else you would like to add along with this?
No, not at all at the moment. Yeah, except to just say thank you so much for everyone for their active participation. And yes. So we can take it from here. There is really a lot of information, something to really sit down and synthesize. Yep. Thank
I
you so
was
much,
also
everyone.
thinking that maybe for the next 6 hours or so, we want to keep the Word document open in case you were not able to add your thoughts, or maybe you had something else that you want to share. So Jenny and I can make a copy of this Word document so we don't lose any of this. But in the meantime, we'll also let the link be open for some time. So you have an opportunity to revisit and maybe add more if you have anything else to share. Or even if you have some reflective questions or something, please feel free to refer to this document and share. But we'll keep it open for some time. And I just wanted to thank all of you for joining us in this co-creation session and for sharing all your valuable thoughts and experiences um, of conducting research on violence against women. Yes, the session will be shared. So we already have a recording of the session. And along with that, we will also be working on a knowledge product. So we will be developing it further, but it will be guided by this Word document and all the thoughts and insights that came during this discussion. But yes, after this meeting, we will be sending a follow-up email or some ways to share the recording as well as the resources that we mentioned during the presentation, such as the feminist tip sheet from COFEM and the COFEM SPRI research report. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining, and thanks a lot Jenny and Elizabeth for helping us out with note taking.
Yeah, thank you so much, Coco. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.